Hello and welcome back to yet another Trove video on the channel. It is Latecom here, and today this has been the long-awaited speed farming bard build that you guys have been waiting for. This video is gonna be more of an endgame flux farming build than it is for farming in the delves. I will probably make a separate video for the delve farming in the near future, but just take note that this is solely and primarily going to be for flux farming and the best optimizations for flux farming as an endgame bard player. So with that being said, let's begin with the video. Now, first off, let's take a look at the stats that I am running on my current bard build. But wait. I know you're looking at 7151 light there, right? You might be wondering, why is Latecom running a stupid build with not even max light and showing it to us on a video right here? Is he trying to do it impromptu without any thinking or whatever? Well, quit your crying, because this is going to be the most optimized build for flux farming in Uber-9 Topside. And I've gotten up to rates of 700,000 flux per hour with this build, and I can testify that this is pretty much the current most optimized build for flux farming. So, why 7151 light and why Uber-9? Let's just address the elephant in the room first, I guess. Flux farming in Uber-9 will only require you to have about 7,000 light plus minus, because any more than 7,000 lights in the Uber-9 Topside will not do any additional damage. Because, let's picture this, okay? Imagine if you have a 500 milliliter cup, alright? And then you've got this huge ass 2-liter bottle, and you're trying to fit all of that 2 liters inside the 500 milliliter cup. It's not happening. It's gonna overflow, and that's pretty much the same thing when it comes to using 9149 lights inside of the Uber-9 Topside. So I hope that clears up everything for you guys. But now let's talk about the next part, why Uber-9 Topside farming for the bard. It is because you're gonna have damage problems when it comes to one-shotting or two-shotting mobs, like, you know, one-shotting the usual stray mobs and then two-shotting the world bosses. That's possible in Uber-9, but in Uber-10 though, that's going to be impossible. Well, it is possible, but you're gonna have to gear your builds to a certain extent. You've got to keep on proccing the arcane emblem in order to keep that consistent. And the second reason why Uber-9 is gonna be better than Uber-10 for flux farming is because of the darn Leviathan farmers that is just going to be consistently lagging the world with their dumb Leviathans. And yeah, that's two things that is alarming for Uber-10 flux farming in comparison to Uber-9 flux farming. And the difference between the flux amounts that you're getting is not even that big. Let me just put up a spreadsheet for you guys just to take a look right there on your screen right now. It's barely about like 5% difference, I guess. Probably even 2.5% difference. So yeah, Uber-9 is definitely better than Uber-10. But enough on that for proving my point. Let's get on into the current build that I'm going to be using for the bard for Uber-9 flux farming. Yes, this build will probably be able to get you up to about 700,000 flux per hour, even more if you are a skilled farmer or flux farmer, that is. Let's take a look at the hats, weapons, and faces. Of course, we're going to be running attack speed, magic find, and movement speed, because these three things are what you are going to actually need on a speed farming build. If you are struggling on damage, swap one of the attack speed off for crit damage. That's it. The rest of it is going to be attack speed, magic find, movement speed. And if you still need additional damage for some god knows what reason, then by all means, go probably get like a face with crit damage, magic damage, and movement speed. Not attack speed. Make sure you always have movement speed on all of your gears, alright? Because that's what you want for a speed farming bard. Food, of course, that's going to be free-range electrolytic crystals. Not too much to be talked about that. Ally is going to be Aviar, because whenever you kill an enemy, that's going to give you a 30 movement speed buff from that. So for the banner is going to be Enshadowed Torch of the Saber Skull. It's going to be the permanent torch mods that you can pretty much obtain, I guess. Then the reason why Saber Skull is because it grants you 10 movement speed. The reason why it is better than the Nitro Chaser is because it gives you 900 light as opposed to the 300 light that you'd be given. Sorry about that. There's 500 magic damage, and there's 5 flask capacities. Well, flask capacities doesn't really matter in this current build, but we're going to be talking about that in a second, alright? So, moving on onto the emblem, of course, we have got Arcane and Trailblazing. The reason why you don't need Chronomatic Emblem on this build is because the cooldown time is basically pretty much non-existent. Because your alts are going to be running for about 30 seconds with this build. You won't pretty much need Chronomatic Emblem. So yeah, there we have it. And something else that you should probably be wary of, I guess, if you want to entirely be sure that you have enough energy for whatever you're gonna try to be doing, and if you don't mind just swapping off Arcane, use Zealous. Because if you take a look, when you use this current build that I'm using with the Vial of Unleashed Power, you're going to be proccing a flask whenever you use your ultimate. So, whenever you actually use, like, your first, I don't know what it's called, but pretty much the purple ultimate, alright? When you're using the purple ultimate, you're gonna actually refill your flask by using the Zealous emblem. So, let's just wait like 3 seconds, 2, 1, 0, and boom. It's gonna refill it back to 100. So, you can swap between Zealous and Arcane as you wish. It's not gonna make too big of a difference, but if you're looking for the maximum amount of energy, you can pretty much use Zealous and swap off energy regeneration and put a Magic Find ring instead of it. So, it's one or the other. If you want Magic Find, use Zealous. If you want more damage, go for Arcane and energy regeneration. As simple as that. Now, of course, it's going to be Trailblazing Emblem because Trailblazing is obviously going to give you an additional 20 movement speed when you proc a Flask. In this case, we're using the Vial of Unleashed Power, which triggers your Flask healing ability and your emblems, actually, when you use your ultimate ability. So, hitting number 2 is going to grant us 20 movement speed because of the Trailblazing Emblem, and by using the Vial of Unleashed Power to proc that ability. So, we know now that the Vial of Unleashed Power is going to be the best for a Speed Farm Bard build. And the reason for that is because he's going to be able to alternate between alts fairly quickly. The reason why other characters can't exactly use this flask, or they're going to struggle by using this flask, is because they can't cycle through alts. Like, look, we can pretty much just spam it twice, even though we don't actually need to spam it twice, because there are going to be cooldowns for the Arcane Emblem, by the way. Let's look at the subclass, because the subclass right here, it's obviously going to be the Candy Barbarian, because it's going to have a higher percentage chance of proccing in comparison to the Lunar Lancer subclass. On top of that, Candy Barbarian gives you 20 base, and the Lunar Lancer just gives you 15 base movement speed. So it's going to be way better, although Candy Barbarian's one is going to be a little RNG, but you're going to be able to obtain that sweet 334 movement speed amount in comparison to probably around like 324 or something along those lines of movement speed, I guess. So that's going to be rather subjective to those of you who might want to use Lunar Lancer. I mean, go ahead, but I'm going to be sticking with the Candy Barbarian subclass. I guess whichever one that you actually have at 30k PR and level 30, then I mean just go on and use that. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the gems, because this is probably one of the main things that you guys have been waiting for, alright? Let's first address why you should actually get your class gem, alright? The reason why you should get your class gem is because it increases the amount of movement speed that you obtain from proccing the green ultimate. I'm just going to call it that. Alright, it's going to give you 40% instead of the 25 without the class gem. Basically, it's going to increase the effectiveness of all of your abilities when you get this class gem. So it's going to be a very, very important gem to socket on your class. Don't miss out on it. Make sure you get it. Make sure you have it. That's all for the class gem. let's move onto the next gem that we've got right here, of course. It's going to be another very important gem. It's going to be Pyrodisc, because Bard is going to be a melee class. Pyrodisc is pretty much going to be a melee AoE effect. And on top of that, though, it's going to grant you 30 base movement speed when you actually proc it. Yes, 30 base movement speed. So of course you're going to actually need this, right? Yeah. There's nothing too much to be said about Pyrodisc. I'm pretty sure you guys already know that it's going to be a very important gem on farming classes as well. Now, let's move onto the other very important gem for farming classes, which is going to be none other than the Vampirian Vanquisher. Alright? Vampirian Vanquisher, well, pretty much is going to give you a chance at obtaining 20 movement speed when you proc the, basically, passive on this gem, which is triggered by dealing a critical hit on enemies. Well, it's going to give you a chance. I'm not too sure about the percentage chance that it's going to grant you because it's not specifically highlighted here. But this is going to be an important gem because it increases your movement speed as well when it gets procced by 20. So let's move on to the fourth and final gem that you can pretty much just change based off of the available gems that you have, which could be Cubic Curtain, could be basically any gem that you have. It doesn't really matter because it's not going to affect your movement speed. You can pretty much use any gem that you have that, you know, has decent stats, I guess. The other things that you should take note of course, if you have got too much crit hit, just roll that into max health, I guess. The rest is just going to be simple. I'm pretty sure as an endgame player, you already know how to build all of your gems. Just get magic damage, crit hit, crit damage, except for that one max health that you've got on that big Emp gem. So, with that being said, I'm going to be showing you guys the practical uses of the Bard in the Uber-9 Topside. So let's go on ahead into the Joe Topside and let's see how he's gonna work. Okay, so Uber-9 Topside. Simple. First off, make sure you proc your ultimate because that is gonna grant you a 40% base... Actually, no. It's going to give you a 40% increase on your base amount of movement speed, alright? So make sure that you're going to be keeping this active at all times, okay? And, of course, make use of the radius that the Bard actually has. It's going to be a 4.5 to 5 block radius, in which is pretty much enough for you to just shred groups of small mobs at a time. And if you're not confident with the range you actually have, then use your right click, although I don't pretty much recommend the right click because it's not as efficient, but use it if you're not that accurate, I guess, with your left click, because it's going to take a while for you to actually get used to the range of the Bard. But as you can see, we're running 306 movement speed, in which could be 334 if we actually procced the movement speed buff from the Candy Barbarians. It's gonna two-shot mobs essentially with this max coefficient build, which is, by the way, I forgot to mention, is just putting all of your rolls and pearls onto crit damage and magic damage instead of light. That's pretty much how you get the max coefficient build. Sorry, I forgot to mention that earlier, but at least I did mention that in this video. But either way, as you can see, we're running 295, 297 dungeons per hour, which is going to be very, very quick. And the in comparison to Dino Tamer and other classes, I believe that the Bard is just way quicker than the Dino Tamer when it comes to speed, that is. But when it comes to, like, clears, that's probably going to be a win for the Dino Tamer. But is it going to be worth it, though, for the additional speed in comparison to clearing? Well, I think yes, and that's the reason why I have swapped from the Bard, from the Dino Tamer onto the Bard. It's because pretty much the Bard goes quicker, okay? You can go up to 272 movement speed on the Dino Tamer, but that's 334 for the Bard. And you can always maintain about 194 for the max Bard, all the way up to 306 movement speed. So let that sink in, because the Bard is going to be a magnificent farming class, and it's going to be second to none to any other classes. The only class that can pretty much give a run for the money for the Bard is going to be Dino Tamer. So it depends on your, preference. It depends on what you like and whether you enjoy the Bard or the Dino Tamer more. because it's gonna really heavily depend on what you like when it comes to flux farming. If you don't like a class, I've mentioned this a lot of times, if you don't like a class when it comes to farming with it, then you're not gonna enjoy the gameplay of it, and you're not gonna enjoy, you know, farming in its entirety because you don't like the class that you're farming with. So use a class that you like, period. So yeah, enough with the demo of the Bard. I guess that's probably about it for this Bard build right now. And as you can see, we're easily managing about 250 plus movement speed at all times. And that's pretty awesome. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'm sorry that this video actually took so long to put out because I really wanted to get accurate information on the builds and stuff. So yeah, I will see you guys in the next couple of videos. As usual, peace out.